This is episode 110 of the Magic Detective Podcast. On this episode, you'll hear about the life of Velma, Queen of Illusion. That and more on this episode of the Magic Detective Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Magic Detective Podcast, your podcast home for magic history. I'm your host, Dean Carnegie. I am the Magic Detective, and this is episode 110. And here we are into summer 2025. I've spent the last 5 weeks in space. Well, to be specific, I've been doing a show about the space program, part magic, part education, and you might not be aware, but once upon a time, I actually wanted to be an astronaut. And a couple things prevented me from doing that. So instead, I remained a big fan of the space program. And I've done a considerable amount of research preparing for this show. So much so, I'm actually tempted to start a podcast just on the space program from Mercury to now. Tempted, but I'm afraid I have my hands full with the Magic Detective Podcast, so that will have to be something down the road. I'm having by the way, having a 4th of July sale on some of my artwork for those interested. The sale will last for about a week, starting today, July the 4th. You can see the artwork on my Magic Detective Facebook group page. Just send me an email if you're interested in any particular piece. These are original paintings. These aren't prints. By the way, give me a little bit of time to get that stuff up. I'm trying to get the podcast finished first. So today we have a really unique topic. This is a collaboration between several people, Sterling Lee, Judge Gary Brown, and our subject Velma, and myself. They all did the heavy lifting. They visited Velma, interviewed her, and dug up a lot of information. I was tasked with putting together all the various interviews and articles into this podcast. So I truly hope you enjoy this piece on a hidden gem in magic, Velma, Queen of Illusion. Many magicians have the same origin story. They saw a relative do a magic trick that got them interested. They got a magic set for their birthday or for Christmas or some other holiday, and that got them interested. Or maybe they saw a magician on television or something like that. Well, our featured performer today has a completely unique story on how she got interested in magic, and I'm going to let her share that story with you now.
Well, that is an interesting story. I was married and I had a 4-year-old boy. And I don't remember how or why the 4-year-old said to me, "Mommy, I want to be a magician." I knew nothing about magic. So I was a good little mother. I went to the library and I got some books out on magic and I started reading, and it became very interesting and I started to practice. So I had to stay home, and the little boy said, "I want to be a magician," and I got the books out of the library and I started reading and say, "Oh, look, I can learn to do this." And I was very talented. I learned, all kinds of
Cards,
the
coins.
interlock finger
Yeah.
card production, and I used to produce the cards over my head.
So Velma learned a few tricks, and she showed her son, and he was dazzled right up until the point when he discovered it wasn't real. At that point, he lost all interest. Now, here's the interesting thing. She didn't just learn some simple tricks. You heard her say the interlocking card production. She learned some very difficult sleight of hand tricks with cards and coins and manipulation magic, basically. Suffice to say, she was very, very good at it. Now, most parents who might have taken this route would just up and move on after their son or daughter lost interest. But Velma had skills, and she decided to keep with it. You see, she got bit by the magic bug. By the way, her name is Velma Nahum. She was born in 1933 in Brooklyn, New York, and today is still very much alive and living in New York. She was known professionally as the astounding Velma and also Velma, Queen of Illusion. She was not known as the amazing Velma because, according to her, Kreskin already had that title, the amazing title. I guess she didn't realize all those sorts of titles were up for grabs by anyone willing to use them. Her foray into magic begins in the early 1960s, and in one of her earliest appearances, she was with the Society of American Magicians Parent Assembly at the opening of the New York World's Fair in 1965. There's a wonderful photo that appeared in the June 1965 issue of Mum magazine with Velma standing in the center of a group of fellow magicians. Velma has more to say on it here.
I said, I come to a point where I have to meet other magicians. I was practicing and getting better and better and better. And
Right.
all the cuts, with both hands, the three-way cuts and all that. I didn't realize that I was talented. I mean, it's not everybody who does these three-way cuts.
Right.
And I just did it. It was easy.
Wow.
So I looked in the yellow pages. That's what you did in those days. And I found the Society and the International Brotherhood, both of them. And I called them and, come to a meeting on Friday night, blah, blah, blah. I forget what the hotel in those days. Now, my husband used to come with me to all those meetings. He wouldn't let me out alone.
Wow.
And I went to every meeting and every lecture, including Frank
Garcia.
Garcia.
Okay.
Every lecture, and Slidini once in a while would do a lecture. And Slidini helped me. He kind of picked me up. He said, oh, there's a girl. And he wanted to work with me, and he wanted to promote me, but he made me do very difficult things, and I did them.
You heard Velma mention Frank Garcia. He was known as the man with the $1 million hands, quite the moniker. He was a well-respected professional magician from New York who specialized in sleight-of-hand close-up magic. He was an authority on gambling and cheating scams. He wrote 22 books on magic and gambling. He appeared on David Letterman, The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, and Dick Cavett Show, among others. So Frank was the real deal. Now, listen to Velma's story about Frank.
That Frank Garcia, you know Frank.
Yes, of course. Of course, I know of him. Yes, sure.
He gave his rendition of the three-shell game at a lecture. And I went home, and with my family, I practiced the three-shell game the way he did it. And then he saw me do it one day, and he almost had a French fit. Well, he gave it in a lecture, but nobody ever went home and practiced except me. And I practiced, and I was really good at it.
Wow.
And so he never talked to me again. He stopped talking to me, and he never talked to me till the day he died.
You mean he was upset that you learned his routine?
He was upset that I was doing it. There was only one thing that I changed, and my husband thought of it. My husband spoke perfect English, even though he had been in an English school in Egypt. So Frank said, it's not under this one, it's not under this one. It's always under the one that you least suspect. He said suspect. And my husband said, well, why don't you say it's always under the one that you least expect?
Nice.
And that was the only thing I changed, but I did his three-shell game.
Wow.
He really had a French fit, Frank.
Wow.
Never talked to me till the day he died.
In 1966, Velma entered the Miss Hocus Pocus contest. This was actually part of a promotional campaign to promote a new line of beauty products called the Hocus Pocus line. So they created this contest, and a number of female magicians entered, Velma being one of them. From the pages of the linking ring, we learn the chosen lady would win a sum of money for herself via a talent contract with a multi-million-dollar cosmetics giant, plus a Lily Dash wardrobe and a lifetime supply of Hazel Bishop products. The ad for this contest appeared in Variety. For the contest, Velma created a special act. She would portray a sort of Turkish harem girl sitting cross-legged on a carpet. From this position, she would do her tricks. She debuted this act during the contest, and she became a finalist in the contest, but in the end did not win the grand prize. However, though she lost the contest, she gained a new profession. Velma now had an act of her own, and she would become a full-time female magician. Now, a bit more on this carpet that she sat upon. Many articles refer to it as a flying carpet. Perhaps this was due to the nature of the act, but the carpet never floated. It was mounted on top of a table, and the table itself was decorated with flowing scarves and such. I guess it's easy to give the impression that the table or the carpet floated. Regardless, of one thing was certain, Velma had an original act on her hands. From the July 1967 Lincoln Ring, we have this description of Velma's act. Quote, "For those of you who like to relive the Arabian Night fantasies, the next attraction is for you. A lovely pink curtain was raised to reveal Velma the Enchantress, the weaver of dreams. Real poetry of motion and movement. Even without magic, she could have you hypnotized. She sits cross-legged on a magic carpet, bejeweled from head to toe, surrounded by incense burners and magic urns, a sheer delight to behold." So clearly it was important for Velma to create a theatrical setting. Her costume was perfect for the act, as were all the additional pieces that came together to create a unique, one-of-a-kind experience. But what was the actual magic? One description has her doing a variety of silk effects, serpentine silk, cut and restored silk, and the interlocking card productions, a cut and restored beaded necklace, and ending with a rising rope from a basket. We also know from photos that she did the effect of pouring water into a folded newspaper and causing it to vanish, and then the water later to reappear. Also in her career, she would add a short zombie ball to the zombie ball effect to the act. Gigs began to pour in for Velma as she was highly original and unique. Back then, she was the only female magician in her area. In February 1968, Velma performed at the famed Lambs Club in New York City. Mark Letty was in attendance and complimented Velma on her act. Mark Letty also booked the acts for the Merv Griffin Show. Later that year, Velma appeared on Merv. She appeared on the Merv Griffin Show 5 different times. She did her act on one of the shows. She even used a dagger head chest on Merv on national television. These high-profile TV appearances and high-profile shows led her to traveling the world on cruise ships. She was on the Queen Elizabeth with her Arabian act. From the December 1967 Mum magazine, we learn that she was on board a transatlantic crossing of the Queen Elizabeth, when among her regular shows, she was asked to do a show for 140 kids. Now, she was not a kid show performer by any stretch, but as it turned out, her show was a roaring success. Actually, even bigger than a roaring success, because at the end of the performance, the children swarmed around Velma asking for more. She told the crowd of children she needed to get on her flying carpet and return to New York. But as fate would have it, the entire crowd followed her back to her cabin, kind of like the Pied Piper. She then told them to head up to the promenade deck because it had been converted over to a launching pad for her flying carpet. So they all headed there. Well, those kids stayed there and wouldn't move. So parents had to come down and alert Velma, who then went to the promenade deck to tell the kids she was having engine trouble and wouldn't be able to take off, but rather would have to get off the boat in New York to have her flying carpet repaired. Velma continued to do cruise work. At one point, she developed a mind-reading act. Now, keep in mind, her husband came with her to all of her shows, so he came along on the cruises as well. The mind-reading act made him part of the show. Velma sat blindfolded while her husband held up cards and various objects for Velma to reveal. The Arabian Act wasn't the only act that Velma created. She also developed a truly silent act. In fact, it was silent with no movement. She created possibly the very first living statue act. You could have your choice of a gold or silver statue, and Velma would show up and sit cross legged for 30 to 60 minutes with no movement. This became the must thing for house parties on Long Island, and it wasn't cheap. But her years of yoga allowed her to sit for long periods of time perfectly still. A really great idea. She would later add magic, and so her set would start with her sitting perfectly still, a la the statue, and then she'd shift to doing close-up magic for guests. In the late 60s, she was on the TV show What's My Line, and celebrity Orson Bean was able to figure out who she was. Orson Bean, by the way, had once been a magician himself. Now here's a crazy story. This is about Gene Rayburn, who you might remember as the host of the TV show Match Game. And I'll let Velma tell this story.
So Gene Rayburn came to the table one lunch. Who was the guy? I can't remember his name, who organized the table.
Oh, there's a lot of different people.
Yeah.
A lot of different, no, there was one, maybe he was the first one. I can't remember his name. Well, anyway, so somebody told Gene Rayburn, and he came to the table on a Friday afternoon when we used to meet. And I said, and he had cameramen and blah, blah, blah. And I said to him, to Gene Rayburn immediately, I said, don't take me because I'm AFTRA and SAG and all the other unions. I said, don't take me because you're going to have to pay me. And he didn't even answer me, or maybe he did. I think he was even nasty answering me. Oh, well, so what? So I can take anything I want or something like that. Anyway, as it turned out, I told him 3-4 times, don't do it. And I was doing the shell game for the guys. By this time it got around, and Frank Garcia didn't like that either. Velma's doing a good job of Frank's rendition of the 3-shell game. So I went home and whatever, and I don't know, not too long later, a friend called me, hey, I saw you on TV, on the Rayburn show, I forget. Hell of a Town, he called it.
Okay.
And he said he was at the magic table, and not only that I was on the show, but they used me as the introduction all day. Oh, watch the lady do the 3-shell game, tune in at 8 p.m., blah, blah, blah. And there I was doing the shell game.
Wow.
And that bothered Frank Garcia very, very, very much, even more so than he had been bothered.
Oh, interesting.
So you had mentioned that you got paid a little bit of everything after.
So he said, no, we don't pay. And I said, don't do it because I need to be paid. And then a friend saw me on the street. I used to bump into a lot of people walking on the street. I don't anymore, of course. I don't even go out anymore. So
we came to you. It's okay.
So he came. So Gene Rayburn put me on. And so I called his office next day. I said, okay, you owe me for the first showing, blah, blah. I knew exactly how much I had to be paid. And they didn't pay me, and I had a call, and I had to report them to the union, and all kinds of terrible things. He finally paid me. He said, you don't deserve to be paid if we show it over and over again, which he did. And as I told you, there I was when they said watch at 8 p.m. and see all the magicians at the magic table. There was Velma doing the 3-shell game. So then, I don't know, months later, weeks later, I bumped into Gene Rayburn at another show. I don't even know which one it was. Some afternoon ladies show. And I said to him, hey, I haven't been getting paid. I got paid for 2 or 3 showings. And he said, don't worry about it. I bought the rights to that show, and I'm going to be showing it all over Europe. Oh, and I said to him, the only reason I know that I was on is I keep bunking into friends on the street, And they say to me,
It's
hey,
playing
I
the
saw
TV.
you on TV last night. So he said, and I told him that story, and then he said, I bought the rights to the show, and I'm taking it to Europe. Do you have any friends in Europe who are going to tell you were on?
Let's fast forward to another TV show. During the taping of To Tell the Truth, she had a chat with Joan Rivers. Now, this is Joan Rivers, the famous comedian. And if you weren't aware, earlier in her career, Joan Rivers worked as an assistant to Kuda Bucks, the man with X-ray eyes. Kuda also did lots of regular magic as well. And as it turns out, Kuda Bucks eventually fired Joan Rivers. Now, according to this chat that Joan had with Velma, the reason she got fired was she could not control herself from making all sorts of funny faces when Kuda Bucks attempted to saw her in half. Can't you just picture that? By the way, Velma later commented on Kuda Bucks and how, in her eyes, he was full of it. She said he was always adjusting his blindfold and he only worked for magicians, according to Velma. Very funny. But I can attest to Kuda Bucks having had quite the career for lay people, and even when he was legally blind, still doing the blindfold act to perfection. But obviously not Velma's cup of tea. In 1972, Velma won the Jack Miller Trophy from IBM Ring 26 in New York. In 1975, Red Book magazine did an article on magic. It described the popularity of magic thanks to the Magic Show on Broadway, the Magic Castle in California, and other programs. And they interviewed Velma. And here is what they had to say, quote, "We talked with the Queen of Illusion, Velma, a dark-haired New Yorker whose last name has done a vanishing act. She says, quote, a woman's role in magic used to be the same everywhere. She was the assistant. She might have done the real work behind the trick, but the audiences always said, oh, isn't he great? Velma points out there was also a lingering suspicion that women, who were once supposed to be sorceresses and witches, might perform bad magic or black magic. When Velma got intrigued to become a magician by seeing an uncle's parlor tricks, she began attending lectures at the Society of American Magicians, and she was the lone female there. She said, I'd take notes like mad, then I'd go home and practice the tricks I'd seen. After 7 years of study, she became adept at sawing people in half, causing carpets to fly, pulling animals, such as male chauvinist piglets, out of top hats. Yet Velma sniffs at the gadgets and hidden machinery behind such tricks. She prefers to baffle her audiences at close range with cards and coins that multiply and mysteriously vanish and then reappear in unexpected places. To her, such sleight of hand is the higher form of magic. Beyond the Arabian Nights act, she also added palmistry to her repertoire. She became quite popular with her palmistry. She actually was a big believer in it. Listen to this story.
Oh, it's quite accurate, The reason you move in a certain way, all this is, and that is what creates the lines. And it's not only the lines; it's the depth of the line. I couldn't read palms now because I can't see at all. But after I finished every magic book, then I started getting palmistry books. I still have some of them. A lot of them I gave away. If you want any palmistry books, I'm happy to give them to you.
What I'm interested in is, was palmistry more about telling things about the person, about their personality, or more about telling their future? Do you understand?
Okay,
the
well,
difference?
yeah. Their personality, you move in a certain way because you think in a certain way. There's no question about that. And because you move in a certain way, the lines form as they do.
Right.
But it's not only the lines, it's the length of the fingers, the relativity of one finger to another. Like the opening here, I think that was sensuality. I don't even remember. In other words, if you're very open, maybe you're very sensual, maybe, as opposed to someone who shows fingers like this.
Right.
And then you move in a certain manner and you get the lines in a certain formation. And I studied that for a long time, and then I worked at it for such a long time. I don't know, hundreds, thousands, millions of hands.
Well,
I don't know.
So when you Westinghouse girl,
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
you were performing, and somebody came up to see you twice. Can you tell that story?
Do you remember that?
Someone in disguise. You're reading palms.
The story we read, and this is what.
Well, they did that quite often. They didn't believe in it.
Yeah.
I really told what I saw. I did.
But, yeah, in this case, right, there's this Photo Weekly had this article, and I think it's right here. They said that a guy, you were at like the photographers convention or something, and you were reading palms, and you read a guy's palm, and then 4 days later, same guy comes back to you, except now he's wearing a wig and a mustache and glasses, and you're
got the same reading.
And he got the same reading, which is really interesting to me because it shows that it was really.
Well, that's why I did the lecture. I don't think I have it here. I have it upstairs. I thought you wouldn't be interested in palmistry. I did a lecture, and I was at Yale University, and I have the palm here if you'd like it. It's a giant palm.
Yeah, it was behind you when you were performing, right? Yeah, we see pictures of it.
Okay, but then I turned around with a crayon in my hand and I explained. And at Yale, the more intelligent they are, the more they like it and the more they believe it.
Over the years, Velma would venture into trade show work, having done programs for IBM, Westinghouse, Sony, Chase Bank, Revlon, Chrysler, Citibank, and many more. She also was popular in the college circuit, having performed at Yale University, Western Maryland College, Villanova, Princeton, and more. Her TV work was also extensive. I've mentioned the Merv Griffin Show and To Tell the Truth, but she was also on Letterman, Conan O'Brien, the Maury Povich Show, and many other local and national talk shows in the United States and Canada. From Chase Bank, she received this glowing comment: "Our employees are still raving about your performances." IBM, not the International Brotherhood of Magicians, but the International Business Machine Company, said, "Your splendid work contributed greatly to the success of our evening." From Westinghouse, "I would like to tell you how pleased we were with your fine performance at our exhibit at the Photo Expo." And Advertising Age magazine said, "Undoubtedly the top female trade show magician." At 69 and a half, after a long and successful career, Velma the Enchantress, Queen of Illusion, decided to park her flying carpet and retire. And yet today she's still very much alive and enjoys reflecting upon her career and many adventures. I'd like to give a big thank you to Sterling Lee and Judge Gary Brown, who did the legwork on interviewing Velma. They gave me the exclusive permission to take their interview and use it for this particular podcast. So, in effect, they are this month's Magic Detectives. And thank you, Velma. You truly are the Queen of Illusion. Quick reminder, I am having the 4th of July sale on some of my artwork, which, looking at the clock now, it's actually going to be the 5th of July sale. I'll post it over on the Magic Detective Facebook group page. It's going to last probably about a week. I'll also include the Fu Manchu painting that I mentioned from last month, which I still haven't put up until now. So you'll have a week to decide if you want to get one of those original paintings. And that, my friends, is going to do it for this episode of the Magic Detective Podcast. Thank you for listening. Until next time, I am Dean Carnegie. I am the Magic Detective. Please be well and stay safe.